My husband and I are about to embark on another business journey, and I've been reflecting a lot on what I would do differently. And everyone that I work with is usually raising humans in some capacity. And I think that's also a huge portion of this conversation. We're not in a silo. Um, we're not just here as robots. And I think sometimes we like to pretend that we are and so focused on, our to-do list and the strategies and the plans and all the things. And some of it that I'm going to say today can be a little counterintuitive to maybe what you've done. So I want you to just come with a very open and curious mindset. What I often like to do and tell people is every mentor that I've had, every book that I've read, every webinar that I've attended, people that I've literally spent thousands of dollars on, they're a tool. They're it's somebody who's giving you information, supporting you with integration. But at the end of the day, you are the only person that deeply, deeply knows what is right for you. My goal for every woman that I work with is to, and some of them get really annoyed with me, but I will go back and I will say, what feels aligned for you? Like, what feels good for you? And when they say, I don't know, that is a little bit of a red flag for me because the whole goal is to have this deep, deep relationship with yourself where you know when something is resistance, you know when something is fear based, you know when something is out of alignment. And strengthening your muscle of intuition and deeply, deeply trusting yourself and being incredibly proud of yourself, to me, is the quote unquote secret that we are all searching for. And so when you have that skill, you can filter everything through that. And so I've been in so many conversations with friends and colleagues when they're incredibly triggered by somebody's opinion. And I'm like, why is that so triggering to you? When it could be triggering and it could be true for you and something can come in, but that doesn't need to be your truth. And I truly believe that when you understand yourself as a North Star, you're navigating life that way, everything becomes easier. And that is when you become free. So the title of today's this is actually what I'm considering a live podcast. I don't kill birds. Okay. I don't like to, I need another saying. We need another saying. We're not killing two birds with one stone, but essentially this is holding me accountable to showing up and to having a conversation. So my intention is to talk, and then I want you to engage because you're here live. I really want you to be able to post your questions in the chats below, and then we will have a Q&A at the end. And if somebody wants to unmute themselves, you can do that as well. We're just gonna riff and have a conversation. And my intention and my goal is that you walk away using that beautiful brain of yours to think differently, to make decisions differently, to ruminate on something today, but don't ruminate for too long. Take action, make an emotionally uncomfortable action, or have that conversation that you need to have with somebody that may feel uncomfortable, and to move through and to process this energy. So the title is 7 and 8 figure time and energy rich growth. Everyone wants to know how to make millions. Everybody wants to know how to make all this money. And the reality is, in order to make, you have to become. In order to make, create anything in life, you have to become the type of person, the type of vessel, the type of being that can create it. And I used to say attract. Sure, you can call it attraction, you can call it manifestation. But think about this. If you are just sitting in the corner, writing in your journal, crossing your fingers, wishing for something to change, hoping for something to change, what actually happens is you start stewing in your shit. You're just rubbing it all over yourself. You're not actually decluttering it. You're not moving the energy. You're not taking any action to seek clarity. You're just continuing this process within yourself in your own little bubble. So when I was kind of writing down of like, what would I do differently? If I'm about to like head into this other venture that is going to take time and energy from me and I need to invest in it, what would I do differently? Because what is really, really important to me, what my ROI is time flexibility, energy freedom, and connection. And so I don't ever want to invest in anything in my life that is going to suck the life out of me. If it's going to suck the life out of me, the joy out of me, if it's going to be a relationship destroyer or chronic disruptor, there's no ROI for me because I am in this for life enhancement. I'm in this for quality of life and impact. I am not in this to just look like a very productive robot, and to be like, look at how much I got done. Look at how big my bank account is. Oh, but my soul is dying and my relationships are shit and my health is shit. So now I need to stop all of that and now reinvest in what actually matters most to me, which is quality of people that I surround myself with, making sure that my children are as healthy as they can be, in my own control, and then also letting them, experience their own human experience, which is really difficult when you want to, support them and, oh, I know how to solve that problem for you. And so it's knowing when to lean in and knowing when to lean out. I remember starting this. I was actually reflecting on my whole quote unquote entrepreneurial journey. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. My father and my grandmother was actually the one that introduced me to the internet. She was like an OG, she was really cool. And I grew up on that side of the family with entrepreneurs, and my mother was a factory worker. And I remember saying to myself as a young little girl, I will never become a business owner because you are always working 24 hours a day. And so I already walked into this because that was the relationship I had with my father was I only saw him when I went to his work, right? Back then, I didn't understand male versus female and all of that roles. What I just saw was like family integrates themselves into this. We don't integrate family into our lives. And so, but that was their perspective. But I physically remember as a small child thinking, I would never own a business because I won't be able to spend quality time with my family. In hindsight, realizing, regardless of beliefs or generation or anything like that, it wasn't necessarily a priority, but time and energy management was not even a thing. And fast forward when I became a social worker, and this is where I really, really encourage people that this really has nothing to do with business and everything to do with your soul. What I've seen over and over and over again, and I know that there's many people on this call that there's a diversity of types of business. I don't actually believe people get in business to do what they're actually doing. I think it's the feeling that they're after. And so the number one thing that I really, really wish I would have focused on was more of the feeling and the impact I wanted to make than the modality of it or how I did it. And what I mean by that is I see so many people control like hanging on for dear life. Like they'll say to me, I need to make money. I'm like, there's a bajillion ways to make money, but you're so narrowly focused on you need to do it this one way. And the reason why you're controlled and like hanging on for dear life to that one way is actually bottlenecking you. And when you are like, you have energy debt, time debt, or financial debt, and you don't feel abundant, like this is the number one thing that I would do differently is get radically honest with myself as to the true why of why I want to pursue something. And when I first started my first business, it was 100% to be a vessel to heal myself and make an impact in the world. I'm just being radically honest. I did not get into it to for profit or revenue. And that's still the same type of work that I do today. I didn't get into it for profit or revenue. My why behind it was impact and to like feel really important in the world. And I think most women, when they are getting into business, they're either so far swung to the other side that they're completely disconnected from themselves, and that comes out sideways, or they are trying to heal through their businesses. And that is a red flag. And you can use your business to heal. You can use your business to grow and evolve. You can gain so much value. But when you're putting that and cash flow and revenue generating together, it's a recipe for disaster because there's a primal need to be able to feed your kids and pay your bills, but you also have to get really, really honest with yourself. So what I also see there is a huge disconnect between women actually, and I'm saying women for a reason, not wanting to focus on revenue generating activities, and they will focus on impact generating activities. And they don't understand the hierarchy of wanting to make that impact in the world, but not focusing first on revenue generating activities. So what I mean by this is if I was to do this again, I mean, we'll start another business and it's not going to be the same type of business that I have now. So there's a different why behind it. But I would focus on understanding that in order to make an impact in the world, in order to quote unquote scale or to support people, you have to make money right out of the get go. And if you are not willing to do that, I highly, highly encourage you to close the doors today and go get a job. Like I'm being radically honest. Stop wasting your money on information products, courses, like stop listening to podcasts, like just stop pursuing this goal and please go get a job. Like please, please, please. And honestly, you can pop off right now. That piece of advice is priceless for you. If you are not willing to make money in your business, it is a very, very expensive hobby, and that is okay. But you need to admit to yourself, hey, I actually have no intention of making money with this. It's just a super expensive hobby for me. It's a hobby. That's okay. But most people are treating their quote unquote businesses like expensive hobbies and they're not getting radically honest with themselves. And it's killing you. It's killing you. Why is it killing you? Because I'm sorry, you are not going to be able to sage this shit away or meditate this shit away. You need to be financially profitable to get a good night's sleep. So when you go get your functional medicine hormone tests and you're pooping in a little fried container, if anyone has ever done a GI map or anything like that, and some people are like, what the hell is Heather doing over there? But if you have ever done any functional testing, my point is when your body is stressed out, go to the root cause of the stress, even if it's a functional holistic approach, and look at the stressor and not only try to manage it, but try to like overcome that stress, like getting radically honest with yourself. What I see over and over and over again is, and again, this is what I would have really wanted. And I'll tell you exactly what I needed when I started. I would have really wanted somebody to say, and I've done this to people and they don't always like it, but when they're in startup, I say, go make $1. And they're like, no, Heather, I want to be a millionaire. I'm like, if you can't make $1, you're not going to be able to make millions. And the reality is, you don't necessarily want to make millions if you are impact driven. You're here for a sense of purpose. You're here to make impact, but you have to understand if you're going to go on a road trip, you got to put gas in the car. And if there's no gas in the car, you can't sit there on fumes when your car stops working and go, I don't know why it won't work. I really don't know why it won't work. The reality is, if you are not profitable, and just take away the whole money part, if there's no financial like backing there, like you don't have a cup and it's like filling up, like, yeah, you might have zero when you start, but if you're not focused on revenue generating activities first, and then saying profit, 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 not necessarily just revenue, profit, 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 like it's not going to be sustainable. It will come out sideways and it's not going to work. So when I started, I really wish my first mentor was like, Heather, we need to focus on revenue generating activities. And even if I gave her pushback, and was like, but I want to make an impact in the world and I can give it away for free and blah, 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 blah. She's like, that's great. But remember, that's privilege. You can give it away for free when you have the privilege of giving it away for free. And right now, you don't, because there is a hierarchy when you are building an impact driven business or a business in general. So I love giving away free shit. I've embedded that model into my business since the start. And I also wish I gave away a lot less of it at the beginning and I gave myself more so that I could have made a bigger impact much quicker. Okay. So here's the thing for some of you, when I first started, one of the first courses I invested in, so this is like 15, almost 20 years ago, believe it or not. One of the first courses when I decided I'm going to be a business owner, I'm going to start a business, it was $1,000 product. And it taught me how to create a course online, like to take my knowledge and to create a course. That bullshit marketing is still out there today. It is the oldest. It's like I know you're all in different industries, and if I came to you and I was like, "Oh, da da da," you'd be like, it would be such a trigger for you that you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, like, are we back in the 1950s?" Like, starting a course is equivalent to say is like the dot-com era. Like, I think it goes back to like the 90s. My point is, people want to start a course because or create a course in any industry because they think it's going to buy back time and energy and they can serve more people at one time. But here's the thing, are you ready to do that as a leader? Do you have energetic capacity? You may sabotage holding space for a group. You may love one-on-one and push away all the groupness. Like it is a muscle, okay? So it's like saying, I want to run a marathon. I'm like, you still won't get off the couch. Like it's not for the faint of heart right out of the get-go. And it's not as easy or as like drag and drop that people say it is. And what I see, it's actually a huge deterrent for people. And they invest so much time in tech because that's easy, money and energy in creating these beautiful funnels. And then they don't have anybody to sell it to. My first digital product was called Teach Your Kid to Meditate. And I like literally, I bought this course and I did everything I was supposed to do. Like check, check, check. I was a good girl. Did it all. Okay. I was like, I'm going to become a millionaire. I'm going to make an impact. Everyone in the world. Boop, send, publish. Crickets, 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 crickets. Failure number one. And at that point, I probably failed a bajillion times before that. I was riding on this belief that it was that easy. And what I didn't realize, so when people say that to me now, they usually don't stick around in my world because they go like buy snake oil from somebody else and decide that Heather's not telling me what I want to hear. So I'm just going to go buy this cheap thing over here and just keep buying cheap shit. And then $3,000 later, be like, nothing's changing. And I'm like, well, if you would have just did that with me at the beginning, you could have made that in 10x back. My point is, you have to focus on making money before you scale. People can make multi 6, 7 figures plus without a course, without one-on-one work. You have to understand how to scale your time and energy. And it's not, even if you're in a traditional brick and mortar or you're like a traditional professional, there are ways that you can scale your time and energy without a quote unquote course. But here is the thing I want to talk about before you do that. And this is the big, big gap. So number one is I wish I didn't start a course at the beginning. I wish my mentor just held, and I did have a mentor like this. I wanted to throat punch her, and I'll talk about her in a second. But the first one, just holding me to be like, I'm going to give you what you actually need, not what you think you want. Because we all come into this thinking we know how to solve a problem, and that's why we don't actually solve a problem. I'm going to let you sit with that. We all think we know how to solve our problem, but we're not actually solving our problem. So we don't actually know how to solve the problem. Does that make sense? So I thought I knew what to do because I was believing and trusting somebody. And it's not to say that that was a scam because it wasn't by any means. I needed to learn that skill and it supported me down the road, but that wasn't what I needed at the beginning. So I would have hired a sales coach to help me with revenue generating activities with what was already in front of me. I didn't have to go and get another certification. I didn't have to go and like build a website. I didn't have to like, beat my face against the wall with all this tech. I didn't have to like climb a mountain, had to do nothing. All like just to help me monetize what was in front of me. Interesting enough is now today we have way more information, so people have too much information and little integration. So what I've noticed over like the past 20 years is back then people needed information. Like they needed to know about technology and what was possible. Now they need help with integration, like physically taking the action to do the emotionally uncomfortable thing. So, would have focused on revenue generating activities first. I would have gotten radically honest if I was just interested in like actually building something profitable because I needed to and wanted to, or if I was just in it to gain a sense of purpose and value in the world and I just wanted it to be a really expensive hobby. So in my case, I already knew that I wanted to grow this. I wanted to make an impact. I wanted it to be long-term sustainability. I had no interest in a really expensive hobby. So I just didn't make that my focus or go down that path. Um, so that I also want to talk about the kid part. I want to talk about the family part because I think this is very, very unique when it comes to women. We are nurturers. It doesn't matter like what your family dynamic is, single, raising humans, not raising humans, sandwich generation, like you are a nurturer. And some people would be like, I need to be more of a nurturer or less of a nurturer. Regardless, women make feelings, like we create essence. We create, like, I always think about my house and how not what it would look like, because I actually I have 3 boys, and I make them all, like, do dishes and clean up after themselves and do their own laundry and all the things, but it's the essence. I like to create the feeling of home, I like to create the feeling of safety, like, we're typically the connectors, and we call it the invisible load because, yes, there is a lot of mental load that we do carry, but counterparts do carry a lot as well. And I think all humans create an invisible load, and it's a different load that's different for everybody. So I want to talk about energy management for a minute of what I would do differently. At the beginning, I did have a lot of mentors. Some of them did not have children, which was totally fine. I didn't necessarily need to have a mentor who had children. Actually, I think my first three mentors didn't have children, which I found fascinating, but it wasn't a huge focus for me because my main focus was on parenting and stuff like that. So I didn't feel like I needed compensation there. The interesting part was one of my mentors, after she had a child, which she did after I worked with her, um, went into a complete like midlife crisis and spiral. And I was like, an identity crisis because of the breakdown of like, you have to operate differently when you're raising humans and also trying to make an impact. But here's the kicker of this. Now, today, although my children are older and we are headed into like the like teen, young adult phase, emotionally, I think my children suck more out of me now than they did when they were younger. But when they were younger, I needed to work more on my physical energy management. So, in hindsight, if I could go back and the skills that are required, and nobody ever wants to listen to me when I tell them this. So, I'm hoping I'm not speaking to a brick wall, but maybe something will seep in because people think they need business skills or marketing skills and sales skills. And I completely agree with that. There's huge gaps there, but those are not going to save you when you have nothing left in the tank. If looking back, I literally had $0. When we started, I had $0. I started my business on a $20,000 credit card that I maxed out all the time. And if anyone is in finances here, they're probably cringing right now, but it's paid off. We're all good now. And I played tricks with myself to get there, but I I always say like Visa was my quote unquote business loan, and I just intellectually, I've always had, I guess, critical thinking skills. I've always thought outside the box. And I'm like, well, if people are willing to go into like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt for post secondary education to make money, that isn't always going to get them the outcome that they desire. And why wouldn't I invest in learning this skill to generate more revenue? So that's how I saw it. But I also, and yes, I put out a lot before it started coming in and generating that. But I also just want to be very transparent that I never identified as somebody who took action. But I also was never that person that took no action. Like, I didn't invest in mentors and then just like swipe a credit card and run and hide. So I definitely wasn't 100% perfect all the time. Like, I asked questions and I failed and I did all the things. But the reason why I'm telling you this is I always had some type of mentorship, and the ones that were the most valuable for me were the people who already had what I wanted, but they also lived the lifestyle that I desired. And I couldn't equate the two. So, example, when my kids were young, if I could go back again, or if I had other small children in my life, I would 10x my physical energy management. So, food as fuel. And I'm not talking like becoming a bodybuilder by any means. I'm talking about like daily walks and daily physical movement. Like I see exercise as a kind of like moving stagnant water in the body. I'm like, I just want my blood to pump. Like, the muscle gain is kind of like money in the bank. I just need to put in the reps. But physical, like making sure my body is solid, this vessel, this like vehicle that is going to get me from point A to point B, that's a non-negotiable. And I cannot abandon that energy. I can't abandon that part of myself. So when I decide that I'm going to start another endeavor, I'm going to start a new business, I'm going to double down on something, or something happened in my life and shit's going to hit the fan, I double down on physical energy management. And by no means am I doing this with rainbows and kitty cats. I am screaming, crying, and acting like a victim the whole time. So I just want to be very honest about that. Like, I'm like, why me? Like, there's a lot of resistance. So when people say, I didn't want to, but I just did it anyways. Sometimes I'm like, was it just that easy for you? You just decided, I don't want to do this, so I'm just going to do it. I'm like, please tell me your ways, because I'm like, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to resist it. And then I'm going to stop being like, well, Heather, what are you going to do? Because I can tell down the road what's going to happen. If, look, in hindsight, I would have Number one, focused on revenue generating activities for 20 minutes a day. Like, what's going to make me a dollar? How do I turn $1 into $2? And then I would have focused on physical energy management, that my brain, my body is really, really important. The food I put in my mouth, really, really important to actually just like eat enough food and not under eat. So I would have figured that out. I mean, we didn't have AI back then like we do now. So I could literally talk to ChatGPT and be like, I usually count macros and I'm like, how many macros am I supposed to eat just for maintenance? Like, how much fuel am I supposed to put in the tank just so my brain can function properly? And I feel like people underestimate that and say they don't have time. Um, that's just like a recipe for disease and disaster. Now, I want to talk about guilt and separation from our kids because that's always a fun one. That's like ripping your heart rate out of your soul, so or your body. So let's talk about that one. The hardest part about raising young kids and going after building a business is the time we spend away from them. That has never left me. People say, "Aren't you so glad your kids are back in school?" And I am one of those weird people, and it could be a trauma response, I don't know. I feel safer when my kids are around me. I don't, and they're loud, they're annoying, I don't get it. I feel like a little duck, like, not a duck, I feel like a duck with my little ducklings, and I want them all in a row, and I want them near me, and that's when I know that they're safe. This may be a response I had, I don't know. But when they were younger, I had a very difficult time being away from them to be able to focus. And so I also don't want you to like discount that, but I don't want that to be the reason why you don't feed your soul or a bigger purpose. And the antidote for that is number one, like feeling your actual feelings. This is never going to go away. It actually can somewhat get worse if you don't have this core skill of emotional intelligence. And what I have now like am kind of playing with this idea of like emotional grit. It's not about suppressing emotion or discounting them. It's about processing and moving through. So I wildly underestimated emotional intelligence, and how much that played a role in success, in time and energy rich growth, because you have to look at what you don't want to look at. And what I've noticed over the years is when I look at what I don't want to look at, I actually have more time and more energy to the point where my brain can't compute. I get way more done in less time because I've developed the skill of running towards the things I don't want to do for short bursts of time. So, for those of you who have worked with me, I talk about my profit rule all the time. And profit equals extra. Like, it doesn't have to be profit as in money, it's that extra time, extra energy, extra revenue or profit. Like, you have extra in your tank. And so I'm like, do it little in little short little bursts. The profit rule, when you're working on your life, on your business, on your next level thing, you are having 3 20-minute focused actions a day. And you should know where those actions, like what you need to focus on. And if you don't, that's where coaching comes in. And you're not going to be perfect. You're going to be like, what is wrong with me? This is a 20-minute task. Why can't I get it done? You will literally scrub the floor with your toothbrush. And if you're like me, search puppies on the internet that your husband won't let you adopt to avoid doing that 20-minute task. So, welcome to this human shit show. Okay. So, you are human. That is okay. So, the reality is you have to understand this is not a time issue. This is not a focus issue. This is a resistance opportunity. You have an opportunity to gain muscle here. You have an opportunity to lean into a new next level skill, which is mastering resistance. So I now understand, and cancer taught me this, and I'm really hoping it doesn't teach any of you this. So I like self-induced crisis instead of real life crisis. So I like putting myself in really uncomfortable scenarios. So when you guys are like, why does she do a marathon a day for 3 days up a mountain? This is why, because I want to see what's inside of me, what I'm avoiding, where my growth opportunities are. So I put myself purposely pay money to put myself in emotionally uncomfortable scenarios to observe what pops up. And then it's always resistance masked as something else. And then I co create with resistance to lean in. So here's the thing, if I'm clear on my business, if I'm clear on my revenue generating activities, where I need to focus my energy and attention, then, and I nail it down to 3 needle moving actions a day. Okay. And I'm like, at minimum, it's just going to be 20 minutes. You are not going to want to take these actions, but they're 20 minutes. You can do anything for 20 minutes. You can put a timer on. I just did this yesterday. I was doing something. I put a timer on. I was like, fuck, I've been at this for 3 hours. I looked at my timer. I was at it for 7 minutes. And I'm like, isn't that a mind game? Isn't that a mind game? And I was like, oh, it's been 3 hours. I'm good. 7 minutes. So when you learn to co-create with your brain, you save so much time and energy. So here's the beauty of this. Women who are raising children and raising humans, this is a really good thing for you because you don't have a lot of extra time to waste. So when you know your quote unquote profit rule or your tasks or the things that you resist and you can chunk it down, you are like, I got to get shit done. I got bills to pay. I got children to feed. I got an impact to make. I do not, and I want to feel alive and energized doing this. I do not have time to waste on busyness. I think as a culture, we are addicted to busy. And the interesting part about that is it comes with the motherhood piece, it comes with the womanhood piece. That if you are not busy, you are not good, you are not successful. Which leads me to the last thing I want to talk about. And I can't believe I've been talking for 40 minutes identity. The under wildly estimated piece as I head into next level venture, mind you, what did I say at the beginning? What's really, really important to me is quality of life and profitability, sustainability, and impact. But people don't talk about it, but it needs to be said that the identity piece required in order to get there is going to be wildly underestimated in order for you to see the success that you desire. When I talk to people that I respect that are light years ahead of me, like physically have conversations with them, and I know they're not BSing me and just like putting on a show, I will be like, okay, cut the shit. Like, what would you tell your old self? And they always, 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 always say, I would raise my standards. I would raise my standards for how, and it's not even about ourselves. It's always about, I would raise my standards for how I let people treat me. I would raise my standards for who I hired. I would raise my standards for how long I hung on to people. I would raise my standards for deeply, deeply trusting my intuition. I would raise my standards for not shrinking to please other people's limiting beliefs. I remember early on having like, I wouldn't even call it doubt. I was like super triggered and annoyed that I raised my standard for myself. And I was like, I can't live like this for the next 30 years of my life. Like, I'm going to go, I'm going to pursue this thing. The second you do that, the universe has a funny way of just plopping people in your life to be like, how bad do you want it? Here's a little speed bump for you. I remember like I appeared to be, I guess you would call it like stay-at-home mom. Like I was home with the kids. There was a transitional period where I wasn't working and I wasn't in school, like, this when they were really young. I remember I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna, while I'm breastfeeding, I'm gonna, like, build this thing and I'm gonna go after it." I'm not kidding, people would knock on my door, quote, unquote, "friends," knock on my door and drop their children off. "Hey, I gotta go do this thing. Can you just watch my kids for me?" And I was like, "I'm supposed to say yes because that's what a good woman would do." And I'm like, "Absolutely fucking not. This isn't a free daycare service." I was so angry, but of course I said yes because I felt guilty. What if I raised my standards and I was actually like, "I don't have the capacity for that." Like, "Thank you so." The version of me today would be like, "Who the do you think you are?" Absolutely not. I would probably be like, well, knowing me, I'd like pull in one of my kids and I'd be like, "Yeah, here's free childcare. Here you go. I got one for you." But like, I just looking back, I was absolutely astonished. But I'm gonna tell you this. The reason why they dropped off their kids was because there was a way that I showed up that they thought that was okay. And we teach people how to treat us, which is boundaries. And there's nothing awful with that, but I could have like simply said, "Hey, I'm in a really, really important meeting. I'm on a call, or I have things that I'm doing today. I don't have the capacity." And they would have said, "Okay." They probably would have been triggered and they would have took their kid away. And it was like, of course, I felt guilty for it, right? Like, I feel guilty because somebody else is dumping their crap on me and I'm supposed to take it on. Which brings us to relationships and the roles that we play. The big kahuna. I have been talking for 48 minutes and I was worried that I wouldn't have anything to say. I want to open it for Q&A and I want to talk briefly. For those of you who've worked with me, understand the drama triangle and the empowerment dynamic. We start it in any relationship we have with other people. And then the more and more and more work we do, we realize, oh shit, like, where am I living in drama within myself? I have become so obsessed with getting out of the drama triangle and into the empowerment dynamic that I have so much time and energy that I can now go to that next level because I am not willing to live a drama life. I actually had a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago, and this was a real life conversation because I'm so obsessed with no drama. She goes, "Sometimes drama's fun." And I go, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to have no friends because everybody wants to connect through drama." And this wasn't about drama with other people, it was about drama within herself. And I was like, this problem is so easy for you to solve, but you were ruminating in the fear. You were ruminating in the guilt and you were like stuck in the shame and you don't want to get out of it because it's serving a purpose for you right now. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm not even the friend for you to engage in this conversation because I don't want to engage in drama because I think it's such a life waster." So when you can get into the creator role and at best, okay, the simple thing I want you to remember is, how can I? That's it. How can I? When you are like, I'm blindfolded in a dark room and I'm telling myself, I can't do this. I don't have the money. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. Nobody supports me. My kids are too young. My kids are too old. I'm too old. I'm too young. Whatever. I got a mustache, facial hair's growing in. I don't care what your challenges are. I want you to close your eyes and just ask yourself in a little whispering voice, how can I? When you are in curiosity and possibility, doors will open. I will sit with that question when I feel like I'm backed into a wall, like a corner, and I'm like, I just don't see how this is possible. First of all, if you don't have mentors or people in your corner that are like, Like people say this to me all the time in Boxer. They're like, Heather, I cannot see a way out of this. It is okay to have people outside of you that cannot see the inside of a label, they call it. Like you can't see the inside of a label in a jar. Get people outside of you who have the mindset of possibility. Do not ask advice from people whose lives you don't want, which includes their relationships, their health, their perspective, their bank accounts, everything. If you are like, I mean, people like to give me unsolicited advice all the time, like usually neighbors and stuff like that. And I'm like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, I don't want your life. I don't care. Thank you. But just going, how can I ask somebody who you respect and trust outside, say, I just can't see it. What do you see? So, any questions you have, post in the chat or unmute yourself and I'll do a hot seat. Sometimes I struggle with figuring out what I can do that is a revenue generating activity. To answer that, when someone says, I'm struggling to figure out what I can do that's a revenue generating activity, here's what I would say as a blanket statement. For you specifically, we can get into the nuance of that. But what I would say is if I deeply trusted myself, because we make it about us and we start adding value to it, and then imposter syndrome and doubt get in the way before we can even see possibilities, maybe do a wouldn't it be nice list. Like, wouldn't it be nice if, and so there's no attachment to it. Wouldn't it be nice if I could monetize how funny I am? Wouldn't it be nice if I could monetize my professional experience? Wouldn't it be nice if I just, made passive income, my money made money? So like just a loose nuance list, and then you can come back to it and be a little more granular with it because there's so many other ways to make money that people don't know about. And then, I mean, sometimes when I'm really, really stuck, if I don't have a mentor or somebody that I can talk to, I'll talk to like AI as well. And I often will just like have conversations to spark curiosity, and then I go down that path as well. So that's when I will start searching like on podcasts or things like that for conversations. But also the other thing I'll say about revenue generating, what are people already paying for and what are people willing to pay for? So there are a lot of things that I'm willing to pay for that I have tried to actually outsource previously, and from like quote unquote people who have labeled themselves as somebody who could actually solve my problem. And then when I don't feel satisfied, I'm asking myself, what was it that I really wanted to buy? Like, what was it that I was really seeing the value in? And 9 out of 10 times, it has nothing to do with the skill. It's more of who that person is for me. So I, at this point in my journey, would buy back, would invest in anything that's going to buy back my mental energy or my time and make my life easier. So I just brought on a new team member, and I wasn't really super drawn to her skills. I was more drawn of how she energetically led, because I knew she could buy back my mental energy. And so most of the time, I'm not actually looking at people's skills. I'm looking at how they show up in the world. And that is what I'm more drawn to. So that's a whole other conversation, but that's how I buy things. But just look at what people are selling. It's also what I tell people when I'm like, you need to focus on revenue generating activities, is to do target market research. I do that a lot with people at the beginning. I just had one woman come in and, we got her from 0 to 10K pretty quickly. And then there's people who are at multi seven figures who are like, I want to start a new revenue stream, or I want to like buy back my time and energy. So there's different levels, different focus. At the end of the day, usually what bottlenecks people is energy management, because it's uncomfortable to lean into the unknown. I find it hard to relate a lot of people because most are hot messes. Yeah, so it seems to be the common theme as to why people don't find it difficult to relate, which is why I think I attract a certain quote unquote type of person is they're done with the hot mess. They're done with that within themselves. They're done with that in other people. And unfortunately, the shadow of that is like you desire deep connections. You want to like you want to be proud of how you're parenting. You want to support your kids. You want to have the mental, emotional, physical, financial capacity to show up for the people that you love. And this takes courage. It takes advocacy skills, but as I can see in the chat, it also takes um the willingness to be emotionally uncomfortable and to go against the grain. And you have to create your, your new friendships, new connections. I'm not the type of person that when I am in a relationship with like friends or colleagues that I'm like, if I don't feel completely energized when I'm around this person, like I'm cutting them out of my life, there's no purpose. I see value in all humans that I connect with. It's just dependent on like how much time I'm going to spend with them. So sometimes there's people in my life that act like the victims, and I'm okay with that because I'm incredibly grateful sometimes that I'm not them and that my brain that I have the capacity to think differently and to have critical thinking skills and to kind of blaze my own path because I'm truly here to make an impact in the world and to leave it better than I found it. And anyone who knows, like, they're like, the world is on fire in a lot of places. And I'm like, absolutely. So why not become a well-resourced woman so that we can make a bigger impact in the world? In 2013, when I was diagnosed, I literally remember checking this invisible suffering box. And I just was like, I will never get here again. And it's not that I don't feel all the things like the big energy of the world. I probably feel it more than the average person. I and I think too because I consciously choose to not turn a blind eye to it, but I ask myself, what am I going to do? And the only thing I have control is myself and like how like what's going on in my home. As like Mother Teresa said, like it all starts at home. And so I start small with myself, my kids, my family, and then have the broader spectrum instead of what I see a lot of people doing is give time, energy, financial resource. Unfortunately, it's not sustainable. And what they can't see is it eventually catches up to you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. So I like to reverse engineer how you want to feel. Okay, we're going to wrap it up. I'm trying to focus on myself and loving myself because I've been letting the doubtfulness and insecurities of my relationships to guide me and change my mood so I don't continue with the goals or derail me. And I feel like I'm stuck and never been able to do myself, to do it myself because I want to please other people. 100%. You're not alone. What more exercises or mindset can I follow to continue being to continue being selfish and do what I need to do? And of course, without feeling guilty. This actually brings me to, I really encourage you to do an audit with us. And if you use the promo code FAST ACTION, I'll give you $500 off. But what I want to say about your question, and I'll talk about the audit in a second, is what you're not saying is I need to do this alone. And I have never met anybody who has been living the life that I've wanted to live or embodied what I wanted to embody who did it by themselves. So I don't know how to help you when it comes to you wanting to do you by yourself. You don't need more exercises. You don't need more tips or tricks. There's nothing that else that I could say to you to magically like change your mind. You need to, this is a courage game, and you have to have the courage to ask for the help that you actually need and to value yourself enough to step into that. And so this is more of a value of a I am worthy of investing in. My mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial energy and goals are worthy of investing in. And I can't do this by myself anymore. I can't pretend that a tip, trick, strategy, action is going to transform my life after I hear it. It's within yourself, it's facing yourself, looking in the mirror and going, this goal that I have is really important to me. And I want to make a big impact in the world. And I want to be able to provide financially for my family. I want to be able to take my kids on amazing life experiences. I want to become the woman that my mother didn't have the opportunity to become. I want like that. I'm very driven by that. And you have to be honest of what wants to be fed and nurtured within yourself and start to feed and nurture that and to water it. And there's no exercise specifically that are going to magically change things when we're doing it in silos. The other thing I want to say is you have to put yourself in emotionally uncomfortable containers of space to create change where you can't give yourself a back door. When I think about a goal or a desire I have, so the journal prompt I use, wouldn't it be nice if? Those are desires to something as like, wouldn't it be nice if I could have a glass of water? To wouldn't it be nice if we could travel the world? If the desire is inside of you, it is for you. The desire is not going to go anywhere. It's going to stick around as long as you let it stick around. And eventually it will either move on to somebody else and it will grow as resentment inside of you. So when people ask about, like, how do I feel alive? How do I feel energized? How do I feel fulfilled? You have to nurture desire inside of you. And that's where aliveness comes. That's where fulfillment comes from. And so when I have a desire, like I'm going to use like a book as an example. Writing a book is like when I was writing my first book, it was like a desire. Wouldn't it be nice if I wrote a book? It always showed up on my list and I just kept pushing it off because it's kind of like an extra, right? It's like a luxury, it's a privilege. It's not like you don't need to write a book to survive. But I knew that there was something inside of it that would make me come alive. It would either like heal something inside of me, it would tick a box, like it would open a door, like just something would expand within me. So I kept trying to write by myself and I just felt overwhelmed. So I kept hiring support. And honestly, sometimes the supports that I would hire would get me from like point A to point B, but it didn't let me cross the finish line. So what I had to do was I had to like go all in. And so I kept taking more and more and more risk, more courageous risk to get the support that I needed so that I couldn't give myself a back door. And I cried. I cried. I got really uncomfortable. I knew what I needed to do. I chipped away. I hired the support that I needed. And I remember when that book came out, I feel like I healed a part of myself that only that journey would have gave me. So I think we constantly circle the pool. We're like, I want to go swimming. I want to go swimming. I want to go swimming. And we're just circling, 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 circling. And what's actually happening there is our brain is very uncomfortable with certainty. So we need to realize that and know that our brain is designed to keep us alive. It is not here to help us thrive. And the thrival part, the abundance part, that's on us. That's not on our biology. So we need to look at our brain, our biology, how we work as humans, and not hack them, but co-create with them. So that's my long-winded version. I also have an opinion on selfishness and guilt. I think guilt is untapped love. I feel guilty every single day. I feel guilty when I eat. I feel guilty when I go for a solo walk. Some people are like, I don't. I'm like, that's okay. Like, that's how you're wired. It's okay not to feel guilty. But I experience a lot of guilt, probably more than the average person. I just don't let it run the show. I communicate my guilt often to see if it's real. So I'll be like, I feel really guilty for this. And I say it out loud to people all the time, and they're like, why? Like, does that even make logical sense? I'm like, nope, makes no logical sense. So I just see it as like untapped love inside of me, but I co-create with it. I talk to it all the time. I write love letters to my guilt. Um, my kids are older, so I will actually talk to them about it, and I'll be like, "I feel guilty for this," and I don't project it onto them, but I'm like, "Is do you like, is there anything else I could do?" Like, we have intimate conversations of, am I projecting my guilt? Am I over nurturing to be selfish, actually? Or is this who my kids actually need? Um, Selfish, is I also critically think about what are these stories that we've been taught and told, which comes back to the identity piece. So I actually think we should be selfish. I think we should consider our needs way more than we actually do. I think we consider our needs, but we're empathetic and understanding other people as well. So you need to learn how to co-create with others. And we do need more self in our lives. We have abandoned ourselves way too much, and so we're dead inside. Our souls are dying, our physical bodies are dying, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies are dying, and we're like barely hanging on, our nose barely above water, and it's like it's selfish to pick me. And yet what we don't realize is when we don't choose ourselves, like literally 10 minutes a day at some points, we actually are a burden, and it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you ever have known a woman in your life, and I'm using a woman as an example because I can only identify with what I can personally identify with, but if you look at a different generation or even just somebody that who doesn't take radical ownership for the life that they want, how does she present? How does she show up? And how is that a burden to her family? I have a lot of women in my community that say, like, I actually spoke to a woman the other day and she goes, my parents have felt like a burden to me my whole life. And like, she just flat out said it. And I was like, okay. And she goes, yeah, it's actually like sucks the life out of me. And I thought, wow, because her parents over nurture, over mother, and it has trapped her. And so I actually see, and I've had these conversations with my kids, especially my oldest who's 20. He goes, how are you? He cares about me. He wants to know that I'm okay. And he just moved out, and he actually moved because he knew I was okay. And he's like, if you weren't okay, I wouldn't have left you. And I was like, absolutely. So how is that being a burden to have a sense of self when, we know we're all attached to everybody else, and that when we all need each other, but when someone is like solid and steady and independent in the sense of like not overly codependent, we have to realize that sometimes our sense of selfishness is actually codependency in disguise. So, because we're gaining value from rescuing other people or abandoning ourselves. And so that to me is a sense of selfishness when we can flip it and really start to dissect and look at it that way. So, oh, don't come at me when you ask for quick tips and strategies. This is what happens in my world. And I say it from a place of love. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Any other questions? So, for those of you who are not a current client, we offer something called a time and energy audit. And I'm going to explain here what it is. And you can just go to heatherchauvin.com/audit. My last name is spelled Chauvim. If you use the code FAST action, which I'm mildly nervous that that's not the code, but I do believe it is, you get a $500 discount. It's typically $9.97. Listen, I reserved this mental space for all the wisdom, not these stupid promo codes. So I'm almost 100% certain that the code is fast action. Anywho, this is what we do. So I've been thinking a lot about where people are, the type of work I do, and where you want to go. You want to live this big life. You want more time, more energy, more financial freedom. And sometimes that's not even your focus. Your focus is connection. Your focus is aliveness. Your focus is like, I need some skills. I need some time management. We have opportunities to serve you from $297 a month all the way up to thousands of dollars a month. This is not about like making you do something you don't want to do. This is about helping you create a life of change. And the first thing I've been thinking a lot about this, especially over the summer, the first thing I'm like, what do people do when they're experiencing symptoms in their life? The first thing you typically do when you go to a healthcare provider, when you go anywhere, is quote unquote testing, right? You do a consultation or you have testing. It's really difficult to test the invisible, right? It's really difficult to test what is emotionally uncomfortable. It's really difficult to test fractures in a relationship, or when you are taking all of this action, revenue generating action, or you're building a business, or you are whatever it is in your life, your personal and professional life, and you can't see what you can't see. You cannot see the other side of the label on the inside of the jar. So you go, you get blood work, you get testing. That is what this time and energy audit is. I see time and energy as your assets. When you align your time and energy with your bigger vision, this is where magic happens. So, what we do is after you register for your time and energy audit, you book a one on one call and you're going to fill out this form. It takes about 30 minutes to fill out the form. And I have created a PT using AI to buy back my mental energy and to also get you results way quicker. What you're going to do is after you input that data, we take that data, I personally take it, we funnel it through my AI bot, and it shoots out a report of why you feel the way you do, why you're not getting the results that you want. And then I talk about the four types of energy: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. I show you your energetic gaps. And then at the end of the report, you get how to fill those gaps. So I show you if you are in like a revenue growth strategy and you're like, why are we not making the money we need to make? So I help you buy back your time and energy, reclaim it so you can actually live the life you want to be living. And I show you what to start doing and stop doing. The reason why we have the one on one call with you, so you get the report, you get a PDF, you can look at it, the nuance of it, and you're going to sit there, you're going to read it, and you're going to go, oh my gosh, I can see where my energy leaks are. I can see why all the busy work that I'm doing. Um, we then have the call with you so that you have your action plan, so that you have the nuance of how do I create my profit rule? What are the three actions I need to take on a daily basis, three 20-minute actions that I need to take on a daily basis to get me to my result as quick as possible? Now, there's no magic pills. I don't believe in magic pills. This takes energy and effort. And I usually attract women who understand that action is not a challenge for them. They're most likely taking too much action and not in the right direction. So we look at the gaps, we find the gaps, we help you fill the gaps, and then that's it. And if you want additional support with integration, we can credit the time and energy audit to that. Or if you were like, absolutely not, I just needed the report and the conversation, and this was an absolute game changer for me, then that's all you need. And my goal here is to help you become more resourced, because when you have the time, the energy, the financial resources, this is where we're going to change the world. Every single time when I started my journey, step one was parenting. I wanted to see and understand my children's behavior. And then it was, I want to leave my job as a social worker and I want to make an impact in the world. Like there's all these different gaps and kind of like seasons and integrations and identities and all the things that we become along the journey. When I had cancer, all of these parts of me in my relationship, in my business, the goal is as you evolve, you should have more time, more energy, and more profit. If you don't, that is a red flag to me. That means you're overcomplicating something. And most of the time, it is inner work that is required. And so we have to come to terms that we have to grow as people in order to get the result that we want. And there is strategy behind this as well. So, time, energy, we look at the audit, we look at the gaps, we help you kind of get on a trajectory of focus so that you can buy back your time and energy and live your one precious life. So you can spend quality time with your family. So you can literally sit outside like a little chameleon and get some sunlight and have the capacity to drink a glass of water and eat a healthy meal, because I just believe that's the most unselfish thing we can do. I can ramble forever and ever. So thank you everybody for staying. And again, you are welcome to join us for a personalized audit. You can go to heatherchauvin.com/, audit and use the code fast action if you're listening to this, and we'll gift you $500 off. Have a beautiful day. And again, would love to know your biggest takeaways. So if you are listening to this now or in the future, go find me on Instagram as well at Heather Chauvin, Chauvin. It's me who answers my private messages on Instagram. Let me know your biggest takeaway. And as always, share it with somebody that you think would see value there. And thank you. Thank you. Chat soon. Bye.